Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one.
The introduction. The quiet town of Ashwood nestled in a valley, its streets lined with modest homes and well-kept gardens. The residents prided themselves on their deep-rooted connections and sense of community. However, beneath the surface tranquility, there lurked a dark history that would soon rise from the shadows. It was an unremarkable Tuesday morning when everything changed. A local woman, Sarah Mitchell, stepped out to fetch her newspaper as she did every day. Only this time, she noticed something odd, a stark contrast to the whimsy of her suburban haven. In the corner of her eye, she spotted an area cordoned off by a navy blue police tape, fluttering like a silent flag of distress. Curiosity piqued, she approached, her heart racing despite the early hour. The scene it unfolded before her was incomprehensibly. A body lay motionless, sprawled on the grassy expanse of 8th Street Park, the sun's rays filtering through the leaves, casting ethereal patterns on the ground. As the ambulance sirens wailed in the distance, a growing crowd began to form, whispering amongst themselves, a harbinger of chaos about to ensue. Detectives arrived, their faces stoic yet pale. They took in the scene with a practiced eye, noting the position of the body, the absence of personal belongings, and the chilling stillness that hung thick in the air. Who was this unfortunate victim? The question loomed large, and the hearts of Ashwood's citizens, each wondering how a murderer could intrude upon their idyllic existence. With unimaginable weight, the town of Ashwood now had a gruesome mystery on its hands, and the pursuit of answers was just beginning. The victim. As the sun climbed higher, illuminating a crime scene, the identity of the victim was confirmed. Her name was Emily Carter, a 28-year-old elementary school teacher, beloved by her students and a familiar face in the community. The news struck Ashwood like a sudden gust of winter wind, bitter and disorienting. Emily lived in a quaint white clapboard house, adorned with flower beds bursting with vibrancy. Neighbors described her as an easy smile and an infectious laugh, the kind of person who could light up a room with her presence. On weekends, she could often be found volunteering at the local animal shelter, her compassionate nature radiating warmth and kindness. Yet beneath a cheerful facade lay secrets that even her closest friends wouldn't suspect. As investigators sifted through her life, they learned that Emily had been grappling with increasing stress at work. The recent uptick in classroom behavioral issues had left her feeling overwhelmed, desperate to be a better teacher while balancing personal turmoil. Resolving to find help, she had spoken to a friend about seeing a therapist, an act buried beneath layers of her sunny disposition. Detectives combed through her social media accounts, finding a mosaic of celebrated moments. Family vacations, dog walks, and classroom activities painted a picture of an idyllic life. But a shadow crept into focus. A series of unsettling messages hinted at a tug-of-war for Emily's attention. By a mysterious figure lurked in the background, a distant acquaintance with a history of obsession, leaving detectives with an uneasy feeling that there was more to uncover. As the sun began to set, casting a somber glow over the town, Emily's death transformed from a tragic event to a puzzle steeped in complexity. The questioning had only just begun, but whispers of sadness evolved into murmurs of unease. The community was desperate for justice, yearning to unravel the layers of a life that was violently cut short. The crime scene, the park, once a refuge for families splashing in the spray of summer fountains, had now become a macabre, stained with tragedy. As the detectives meticulously examined the scene, the nerves of the town buzzed with an electric pall of dread. Nothing could have prepared them for the grim realities that awaited them amongst the tangled grass, and the chorus of anxious whispers from onlookers. Forensic teams fanned out, their fluorescent vests a stark contrast against the vibrant greens of the park. They approached the body with steely professionalism, noting the position of Emily Carter's limbs, the faint scuff of her shoe against the earth, and the direction of any potential struggle. Not far from her lifeless form lay her purse, untouched but seemingly out of place, a telltale sign that perhaps this was not a robbery gone wrong, but something far more sinister. Detective James Holloway took a knee beside the body, careful not to disturb the scene. He noticed the absence of bloodshed. Emily lay unnaturally still, her porcelain skin glistening under the muted sun. The absence of visible trauma or defensive wounds suggested a degree of premeditation that gnawed at the detective's gut. It appeared she hadn't seen it coming, and that unnerved him. As the medical examiner arrived, a stillness fell over the bystanders. Holloway took a moment to glance toward the anxious faces, some teetering on the precipice of disbelief while others gawked in morbid fascination. How could something like this happen in Ashwood? A town so firmly rooted in neighborliness and peace was now stained with fear. Collecting evidence, the forensics team found a cigarette butt crushed underfoot. Its origin a mystery, but its potential connection weighed heavily on their minds. Closer examination unearthed Emily's phone. Its screen lit up as if it were alive, displaying recent messages that dripped with tension, raising questions about who might hold the key to her demise. For Detective Holloway, that moment crystallized the castile, vibrant vibrancy of life, now juxtaposed against the stark reality of death. As he rose from the ground, the enormity of the task ahead consumed him. The clock was ticking, and finding Emily's killer in this once tranquil town had become imperative. The early investigation. With the initial stages of the investigation set in motion, Detective James Holloway gathered his team at the station, the weight of responsibility heavy on their shoulders. The air was thick with tension as they reviewed the case notes, papers strewn across a weathered tablet, a cacophony of details, crying out to be pieced together. Holloway laid out the timeline, meticulously backtracking through Emily Carter's last 24 hours. She had finished a routine day at school, delighted her students with a controlled chaos of art projects, and left with a smile unbeknownst to her. It would be the last. The detective felt the gravity of that last moment hanging in the air, like an unanswered question. "Let's focus on her contacts," Holloway instructed, a robust determination lacing his voice. They delved into Emily's social media, combing through connections, notable acquaintances, and suspicious messages. The most alarming were the flurry of direct messages from a former classmate, Jared Mason, whose infatuation with Emily had escalated from casual fascination to disturbing obsession over the years. Detectives approached Mason's home in the early evening, the sun dipping low behind the horizon, casting long shadows. Holloway felt the unmistakable thrill of pursuing a lead, but an undercurrent of dread also permeated the air. It was an unsettling reminder of how quickly lives could change. Sometimes irrevocably. Mason answered the door, his demeanor unfazed, yet the flush in his cheeks betrayed a habit of indulgence. When informed of Emily's death, disbelief flickered in his eyes, quickly morphing into a mask of feigned grief. Holloway noted the telltale signs: defensiveness, a readiness to deflect blame. The unyielding glimmer in his gaze pierced through the smoke of his rehearsed sorrow. As they questioned him about that fateful evening, Mason claimed he had spent the day running errands, a vague alibi that unraveled under scrutiny. Ever the charmer, he had a way of softening hearts with his words, but Holloway could sense insincerity lurking beneath the surface. Jared revealed he had occasionally reached out to Emily, but she had gone quiet lately, her disinterest only fueling his frustration. Leaving Mason's home, Holloway wrestled with the knowledge that the quiet town of Ashwood was now mingling with chaos, entangled by secrets hiding deep beneath familiar faces. They hadn't yet discovered the truth, but as the light faded, Holloway sensed they were teetering on the edge of revelation. Would they uncover the hidden depths of obsession that had led to Emily's tragic end, or had they only scratched the surface? The question lingered, heavy with the unyielding weight of urgency. The dead ends. The investigation continued unabated, but as the days wore on, the pressure mounted. Detective Holloway pored over files, phone records, and witness statements in a desperate attempt to tighten the net around a suspect. Despite their early optimism, leads turned cold with a frustrating frequency, and every promising avenue seemed to lead to a dead end. A follow-up interview with Jared Mason failed to yield new information. His charm was still intact, easily deflecting Holloway's probing questions, and it became clear to the detectives that his demeanor bordered on arrogance. A background check revealed little more than a string of minor infractions, a history of youthful indiscretions that naturally flowed in the direction of juvenile misdemeanors. There was no hard evidence tying him to the murder, no fingerprints or records of sightings at the park. Pursuing a fresh angle, the team ventured into Emily's social circle, reaching out to friends and colleagues. Most spoke of her compassion and a recent dip in her enthusiasm for life. One friend mentioned a mysterious text message Emily had received shortly before her death, but when detectives pressed for details, the friend could only recall a vague mention of a meeting that never transpired. The clue offered little substance, but it clung stubbornly to Holloway's mind, a breadcrumb leading to an uncertain destination. As the team continued canvassing Ashley Park, where Emily often took her students for exercise, they encountered a few passers-by who had witnessed her there in the days leading up to her death. Yet their recollections remained frustratingly generic. Children playing, laughter, and the occasional shuffling in the grass. Familiarity swirled around the case, almost mocking the detectives for their inability to see beyond the noise of the mundane. In the meantime, surveillance footage from nearby shops produced forgettable imagery, a stream of faces flickering across the screen, none of which offered a shred of clarity regarding the last moments of Emily's life before she was lost to them. The hours turned into days, and every shadow cast by uncertainty grew heavier each afternoon, bringing a fresh wave of frustration. Holloway leaned against his cluttered desk in the police precinct, staring through the glass wall, attempting to find where the threads of the case might intertwine once more. Each hour of unyielding investigation seemed to pale in comparison to the mountain of unanswered questions. As he prepared for yet another long night fueled by coffee and determination, he felt the team's collective frustration and anxiety weigh heavily in the irrepalpable reminder that justice remained tantalizingly out of reach. A break in the case. Just when the heaviness in the air threatened to suffocate hope, the glimmer of possibility arrived unexpectedly. Detective Holloway was going through Emily's cell phone records yet again. when a particular number caught his eye, one that had appeared several times in the days leading up to her death. It belonged to a woman named Lisa Grant, an acquaintance from Emily's school who had not been mentioned in any previous interviews. Intrigued, Holloway pulled the chat logs from the phone. It became apparent that the two had conversed frequently, often late into the evening. Tone shifted from casual camaraderie to something more strained. Holloway noted instances where Emily seemed agitated, her messages layered with uncertainty about her relationship with Jared Mason. Lita's replies came across as supportive, yet there lingered an undercurrent suggesting that she knew more than what she had shared. The detectives quickly arranged to speak with Lisa. When she arrived at the station, a coil of nervous energy buzzed around her. Holloway watched as her hands twisted in her lap, betraying her unease. She was articulate but skittish, and it didn't take long for the questions to come tumbling out. "What can you tell us about Emily's relationship with Jared Mason?" Holloway asked, noting the way her eyes darted to the exit before she glanced down at the table. "He was persistent," she replied, hesitating. She didn't want to be rude, but it started to make her uncomfortable. "I'm not surprised to hear about her death, to be honest." Things had escalated between them. Holloway leaned in, his senses heightened. "What do you mean? Did you see something? Did she tell you?" Lisa interrupted, her voice raising slightly. "I just know she felt trapped, like she couldn't escape his grasp. Last week, she mentioned getting strange messages, even a number of missed calls that she didn't recognize." As Holloway encouraged her to elaborate, she revealed that Emily had confided in her about a recent incident where Jared had shown up at the shelter while she was volunteering, much to her alarm. The fear was palpable in Lisa's voice as she recounted how Emily ultimately decided to address the matter directly, intending to confront Jared about his behavior. With each revelation, energy surged and the room, a spark ignited within Holloway. If he could trace the calls that Emily received, there might still be a chance to unearth the truth. As Lisa spoke about her friend's vulnerability, it became clear that the web of Emily's life was far more complex than anyone realized. Leaving the interrogation room, Holloway felt renewed vigor coursing through him. The scent of justice hung faintly in the air, a reminder that although they had dug through countless layers of aliased identities and false alibis, they were finally beginning to fulfill their promise to Emily. The investigation was turning. Pieces were falling into place as they poised themselves for what felt like a pivotal moment. As hope glimmered in the distance, he knew they were on the cusp of something significant. The suspect. The atmosphere in the precinct was electric as Detective Holloway and his team prepared to confront Jared Mason with new evidence. The tenor of the investigation had shifted dramatically. What had once felt like a miasma of confusion and uncertainty now solidified into a more discernible path. Holloway reviewed the notes from Lisa Grant, her words echoing in his mind like a haunting refrain. She felt trapped. The office buzzed with anticipation as Holloway assembled his team. "Let's take a methodical approach," he instructed. "We'll follow him tonight and gather any additional evidence we can." The call logs may hold vital clues that tie in to the moments leading up to Emily's death. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the detectives set out in unmarked cars, surveying Mason's residence from a distance. Holloway felt the bass thrum of anticipation in his chest, aware that one pivotal encounter could tilt the scales of justice. Hours passed under the calming embrace of twilight the rhythm of unease thrumming against their nerves. Mason finally emerged, adjusting the collar of his jacket, an air of practiced nonchalance draping over him as he stepped into a small sedan. I gestured for his teen foe. The car meandered through Ashwood, eventually leading them to the Lantern, the local bar where warm lights spilled onto the streets. They parked a discreet distance away, waiting. Inside the bar, Mason settled into a booth, laughing boisterously with friends. Holloway watched as Mason raised a drink in celebration as if he were oblivious to the distant universe closing in on it. The detective tuned into the conversations, listened for anything that might elucidate Mason's relationship with Emily. Banter soared, a tempo of brotherhood masking his internal wariness. Suddenly, things took a turn. As Mason excused himself from the company of friends, he stepped outside to make a call. Holloway caught sight of Mason's clenched fist, living tension radiating from his body as he leaned against the wall, the phone pressed against his ear. The detective couldn't hear the words, but there was an urgency in Mason's posture that piqued his interest. Holloway gestured for his partner, Detective Sarah Lynn, to move in closer. An unfamiliar surge of adrenaline coursed through them as they moved to intercept Mason before the call concluded. Holloway stepped forward as Mason ended the call, his demeanor shifting from carefree to evidently guarded. Without any preamble, Holloway flashed his badge. "Jared Mason, we need to talk." Mason's eyes widened for a fraction of a second. Fear and defiance clashed, a flickering internal battle that played across his face. "I didn't do any wrong," he protested, the bravado faltering. "What's this about? I suggest you come with us," Holloway urged, locking eyes with Mason. Sensing that the man was beginning to realize the enormity of the situation, they had him cornered, and for the first time the once elusive truth felt palpably close. With each step Mason took alongside the detectives, the pieces began to fit. The weight of responsibility loomed heavy, signaling the inevitable reckoning that awaited. The hunt was gaining momentum, and this time, they were ready to approach the precipice of clarity. The trial. Months had passed since the unearthing of Emily Carter's tragic end. The courtroom buzzed with a tense energy, a mosaic of emotions woven together as family, friends, and onlookers filled the seats, the solemnity of the space pressing heavily upon them. The air hung thick with anticipation, the desire for justice palpable as the trial against Jared Mason commenced. Detective Holloway sat near the front, his heart thundering as he prepared to relive the harrowing sequence of events in a public forum. Prosecution was led by Assistant District Attorney Priora Morrison, whose grounded confidence radiated as she stepped before the jury. They were a mixed crowd, faces of varying backgrounds and ages, ordinary people, tasked with an extraordinary responsibility. The first witness called to the stand was Lisa Brent. As she took her seat, Holloway could feel the muted weight of anxiety envelop her, a stark reminder of the burden she carried in explaining her friend's struggle. Her voice trembled slightly as she recounted her last conversations with Emily, how she had confided in her about Jared's unwelcome attention. The jurors listened intently, leaning in as Lisa described Emily's mounting fear and frustration, painting a vivid picture of a life overshadowed by obsession. With each pointed question from the prosecution, the tension in the courtroom thickened, the specter of Emily's memory hovering like a shroud. Holloway observed Mason's face go pale, the mask of bravado slipping as he heard the accusations that would ultimately seal his fate. Later, Holloway took the stand when he shared procedural details, speaking candidly about the evidence collected, the cell phone records, the timeline of relationships. Could sense the collective disbelief wash over the jury. The room felt electric. Even the smallest tremors of his voice became magnified in the silent expanse. Defense attorney Richard Hawkins countered with aplomb, painting Jared as a misunderstood young man caught in a web of circumstance. He attempted to exploit every ambiguity in the evidence, questioning Holloway's conclusions and marshalling doubts. "What about the lack of direct evidence?" he demanded, glancing at the jury with a knowing smirk. Couldn't this all just be a tragic accident? But the resilience in the prosecution reminded them all of one indisputable fact. Emily had reached out for help, cried out against the worldly fight she was losing. The jury couldn't afford to ignore the truth she desperately sought to escape. As the trial progressed, emotions bubbled beneath the surface, and the emotional weight, cradled by witnesses, grew severer. Each testimony was a stitch in the fabric of injustice, forcing the jury, the public, and Holloway himself to confront the depths of human darkness. In closing arguments, Clara Morrison's, Claren called at result. Emily Carter deserved better. She deserved life, love, and kindness, not the suffocating grip of obsession that led to her murder. This was no accident. It was a calculated act, a painful end to a vibrant life. Why? As the jury deliberated, Holloway held his breath, memories flashing: the laughter of children, the warmth of community, the promise of new beginnings, extinguished far too soon. And when the verdict of guilty echoed through the courtroom, the surge of collective relief mingled with sorrow, a bittersweet reminder that while justice had been served, it never replaced the loss felt by so many. The trial marked an end, a chapter closed, but the reverberations of Emily's spirit echoed in the hearts of each person, present their story etched into the narrative of Ashwood, a sobering testament to the importance of vigilance, kindness, and the pursuit of truth amidst chaos. The aftermath. In the weeks following the trial, Ashwood struggled to reclaim its serenity. As wounds lingered beneath the surface, the town had witnessed shattered innocence, and the weight of Emily Carter's loss still hung in the air like a fog that refused to lift. The local community had rallied following the verdict, but healing proved to be a slow and uneven journey. Detective James Holloway often found himself at a coffee shop on Maple Street, staring out the window at the disorienting whirl of life outside. Children played in the park, laughter ringing out like a far-off melody, and he wondered whether the laughter felt hollow to parents who had once roamed those very paths with Emily. The heavy silence at the back of his mind clung tightly, a reminder of the urgency that had permeated every moment of the investigation. Meanwhile, Lisa Grant became a force for change within the community. She organized support sessions for anyone struggling with mental health or feeling trapped in toxic relationships, determined that no one else should endure the same fate as Emily. As she took the stage at local gatherings, sharing her friend's story, Holloway recognized a fierce determination in her voice, a lifeline for others that sought solace where they felt there were not. As the seasons shifted, the town found its rhythm once more. There were memorials to celebrate Emily's life. Benches adorned with flowers were stationed throughout the park, each a testament to a love that had grown far beyond its tragic ending. School children planted trees, each sapling representing hope, resilience, and a reminder of the importance of supporting one another. Holloway often sat on the very benches, surrounded by whispers of laughter, and couldn't help but feel Emily's spirit drifting through the air. In the wake of Jared Mason's conviction, many considered how well they truly knew one another. Friends and neighbors reevaluated their connections and began to cultivate deeper relationships, confronting their own vulnerabilities and the secrets that often festered beneath smile. They learned to check in regularly, expanding a network of support that transcended superficial greetings shared over white picket fences. Holloway returned to the precinct, where the sounds of the bustle filled the air once more. He saw his colleagues diligently working to close other cases, the hum of determination evident as they honored Emily's memory through their relentless pursuit of truth. The haunting weight of his interactions with their family lingered, especially the eyes of your mother, who wore sorrow like a veil. He had found the strength to speak passionately about love and unity in the wake of heartbreak. The detective held on to hope that the lessons gleaned from Emily's tragedy would extend beyond the confines of Ashwood. As he navigated through each day, the knowledge that he had played a part in seeking justice served as a beacon in a world that could sometimes feel harsh and unforgiving. Holloway vowed that he would remain vigilant, committed to protecting others, continuing to honor Emily's legacy with every case he touched. Life continued its relentless march forward, a bittersweet reminder that even amidst darkness, the connections forged through grief gave way to resilience and change. In the heart of Ashwood, community spirit flourished, aiming to shield its own from the shadows that could creep in without warning, reminding everyone that even the smallest act of kindness could light the way in the darkest of time. Reflection. As the seasons turned and the shadows of Emily Carter's loss faded into the fabric of Ashwood, Detective James Holloway found himself reflecting on the frailty of life and the profound impact one soul could leave behind. Strolling through 8th Street Park, now adorned with plaques honoring Emily's memory, he marveled at the resilience of the community that had banded together in the wake of tragedy. The grief that had once silenced laughter had transformed into a powerful clarion call, urging individuals to confront their own struggles with compassion. Holloway recalled the faces from the trial-free weariness in Emily's mother's eyes, the raw vulnerability that had permeated every testimony. That shared pain transformed into motivation, propelling them toward change and awareness, rooted deep in the human experience. Filled with a sense of conviction, Holloway resolved to keep discussing difficult issues, mental health, relationships, and the areas of life where darkness often lurked unannounced. He understood that Emily's story could serve as a beacon, a shining light directing others facing similar trials toward help, healing, and ultimately, hope.